Well, good morning. Thanks for your time today. We're always grateful for the chance to connect during these webinars. My name is Bruce Anthony, and I'm one of the trainers with Service Technologies. As always, I wanted to point out that I have several colleagues on the call today who will be able to answer questions via the chat function, so please feel free to ask away throughout the webinar. They'll answer questions directly, and they'll also let me know if there's any questions that would be good for the entire group. I also want to note that if you have to leave before you receive a response, our customer support team will reach out to you after the webinar. And with that, let's get into it. So the plan for today is to cover the full feature of volunteer awards. We'll start off with an overview of awards management and the concept itself, and then we'll dive into how to create these awards for your volunteers, how they're attributed to volunteers, both manually and automatically, and how to search for volunteers who've earned certain awards, as well as reporting on this information. And by the end of our time here today, you should be able to go ahead and get into your system and create awards that your volunteers can start earning today. So the award management system within CERVIS is a pretty exciting way for you to create engagement with your volunteers by providing them goals that they can earn, that with badges that represent that, the hard work that they've put forth, and also their commitment to you as an organization. When a volunteer has earned an award, they're notified the next time that they log into their account, whether they log in directly when they're registering for an event, or if they're using the sign-in console and they're signing in for a shift, that badge gets displayed. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit here. They can also review all the awards that they've earned in a trophy case, kind of looking at their profile. So again, we're going to take a look at that in a moment here, but I want to start off with talking about how to create awards and the different types of awards available. If we go under attributes to award inventory management, this is kind of the last option in this section. This page contains both existing awards that you've created previously, as well as how to create new awards at the top of the page. So when you're creating a new award, you just write in the award name itself. Now it could be a fairly dry descriptive name, like in our example, kind of in the gray background here, 5 years of service. You could write that in directly. But you could also give these interesting titles or fun names, kind of whatever you're interested in doing here. This is the title of the award itself. The description is sort of displayed in parity with that. So I would encourage you to have one of these be descriptive, at least so that volunteers know what the award is or how they might obtain that award. The badge is one of these icons here, and you can reuse these icons. So if you want to use the same one for different milestones, you can choose to do that. We do add to these pretty consistently, especially around holidays and things like that. But there's a lot of options in here. If you're just going for the traditional kind of like bronze, silver, gold, there's a bunch of those types of options. And then there's other sort of icons that represent different ideas. So you can pick a badge through there. Below that is the assignment. And this is how the award gets delivered to the volunteer, essentially how it's given to a volunteer or how a volunteer can achieve it. As I mentioned before, there's sort of two main ideas here. There's manually assigned awards and automatically assigned awards. A manually assigned award is created by choosing manual on the right-hand side here, and that just sets this to 0 times manual. And then essentially you can give this award to volunteers manually, right? You can go into a volunteer's account and say, this person has earned this badge. Think of that as kind of like a gold star or a pin or something like that. There are, however, cases where you can utilize manually assigned awards in correlation with something else in the database. Kind of falls more in line with the idea of like an automatically assigned award, but manually assigned awards are sort of the starting place for that. So these aren't given out based on a certain number of times served or a certain number of hours served. They're given out in other methods. So going over to sort of the automatically assigned awards, and then we'll kind of jump back to this one too. You can assign awards based on the number of hours that someone has worked with you, or the number of times. This would be like the instances of service, the number of registrations, for example. And you can also assign awards based on impact tracking metrics. If you're not totally sure what impact tracking metrics are, we do have a webinar on this topic. So if you go to our YouTube channel or go to video.servicetech.com, you can pull that up. But impact tracking is a way for you to keep track of external or additional numerical metrics. Basically, if you keep track of like how many pounds of food were sorted during your shift, or how many clients did you engage with during your shift, then you can also give out awards based on that information. So those will show up in here, any impact tracking metric you've created. Obviously, this is my demonstration console, and we have 3 examples of that. And then there's one other way that awards can be assigned automatically based on a number, and that's years of service. Now, specifically when you select years here, this will automatically change the last item to of service. So if we were going through our example, 5 years of service as an award, then I would type that in as the title. I can give a description if I want to. I don't have to. I could leave that blank. I pick what badge I want to use. And then down here for the assignment, I would enter in 5 for the number and then choose years. And then the system again automatically selects of service. And this will be given to volunteers after they complete or after they've engaged with you for 5 years. Basically, this is kind of hinging on what's called the service start date, which is when a person's profile was created or added into service. But it is actually something you can edit, and you can also import that information. So if you have kind of like a spreadsheet of that data, you can use the data import tool to kind of bulk update that for lists of volunteers. All right, finally, the award status here is either enabled or disabled. Obviously, when you're creating a new award, this should be enabled. If there's something you no longer want to hand out, then you can choose to disable that. Now, going back to the award assignment here. So we just kind of walked through one full example, right? Creating this 5 years of service, but let's go back into the hours and times. I want to talk about a couple different ways that you can use these milestones. So if I wanted to give out an award for volunteers who have participated 50 hours in their lifetime, I would write in 50, select hours, and then on the right-hand side, there's sort of 3 periods that you can select between for the hours, times, and impact tracking metrics. So I could say I want to give this award out monthly. So if someone serves for 50 hours within a single month, they could earn this badge every single month. And that badge will be labeled by month. So they earned this in January 2023. They would get a badge basically every time they did that. You can do the same thing annually. And this is calendar year, so January through December. So basically for 2023 or 2022. And then you can also do lifetime. And this is sort of the example that I mentioned. If I want people to receive a badge for participating 50 hours, doesn't matter when, just lifetime sort of metric, then that's what I would select. Now, once you've created a badge, it will show up in a section that the system will create automatically. So these headings here get generated automatically as you build out awards that kind of fit the description, right? So years of service milestones, lifetime participation, so like 50 lifetime hours, yearly participation or monthly participation, and then down at the bottom, other awards would be manually assigned awards. Now I mentioned that you can use manually assigned awards kind of as another sort of token that gets sent out automatically. And that's if you set up a manually assigned award to be associated with a specific opportunity or with a checklist item. So when you're creating a checklist item in CERVIS, which checklist items are basically just a way to keep track of dated tasks associated with volunteers, you can, when you create a checklist item, link an award. So maybe I have a checklist item of whether or not someone is an approved driver, right? Like if they've completed a particular training for that or handed in all their information that we need. I could link that award to this checklist item, as I build it out. And then when I mark that someone has completed this checklist item, then they'll also be delivered that award. So that badge would then kind of go in tandem with it. And that, of course, is a manually assigned award. Those are the only options that we see in here when we're talking about linking an award to a checklist item. Likewise, when you create an opportunity, or if you update an existing opportunity, under the advanced options section at the bottom, there's an option to link an award. And this is the same kind of idea. So I could link an award to a particular opportunity. And then when someone participates in this event, this award will be given to that person automatically. This is often used in things like maybe you have like a festival every year and you want volunteers to kind of get like a badge or a pin for that. And you could create an award that represents that sort of virtually as a pin. And then volunteers would receive that if they participated in that particular festival or event this year. Now, one thing to note about automatically assigned awards like this, whether it's a manually assigned award for an opportunity, again, this is given out when people participate in the event, and then also for automatically assigned awards based on milestones like numbers of hours participated or anything based on registrations. If there's an award that's based on, numbers of hours participated or a particular shift that someone participated in, the system adds in a 48-hour buffer before that award is given out. And that's to give you space to mark no-shows. So if someone did not participate in a shift, then you can mark them as a no-show and they won't just automatically receive that award. If you have somebody no-show for a shift and that would have been their 50 lifetime hours, they don't get that award until 48 hours later. And so it gives you space to kind of mark them as a no-show if they didn't show up or whatever else. All right, there's two kind of last notes that I just want to briefly mention about awards so you have the information. The name of an award is limited to 50 characters and the description is limited to 250 characters. I think that's pretty generous for what these fields are. You don't really need like a really long name, and the description can, contain more information about what that particularly is. Okay, I do want to show you now where awards show up, both on the back end and on the front end. So from the admin perspective, if you go into a volunteer's profile and we just click to view the awards or manage the awards for an individual, this icon will show up next to each person's name if you have an award created in your system. So if you're following along and you don't see this icon, that's because you haven't made any awards yet. But if you go into manage a profile for a volunteer, you will also see the option to view or update volunteer awards. These both take you basically to a menu that displays at the top what you can give to someone. These are the manually assigned awards. So I could go in and select one of these to add to this person's profile. And then down below that, we can see what this person has achieved or what they've earned. You can see when they earned it, and then you can also see how much progress they've made towards the next award in that category. So you can see kind of all of that information based on the awards that you've laid out. Obviously, we're not seeing every single award in the system on this person's profile because they haven't earned all of those awards. We don't necessarily need to see all of those automatically assigned awards because they'll just show up when they become relevant. So we can see all that data through here. And then, of course, on the admin side, I can remove these as needed. One other kind of quick note about generating awards based on milestones. If you're creating awards that are yearly or monthly, those will apply today moving forward. So they're not going to retroactively apply, for example, to 2022 because we are in 2023. Right now it's January. So if you made an award that was monthly, volunteers could earn that for January, and that would backdate back to January 1st. So it would include all the activity from January, but you wouldn't see any of these awards being, created for December of 2022 because that's already taken place. Okay, so on the admin side, this is sort of where you see this on a volunteer's profile. We'll talk about searching and reporting in a second, but before we do that, I want to show you from the volunteer perspective where they see these badges and how they show up for volunteers. So one of those ways is if a volunteer logs into their account. So I'm just going to switch over to view the system as a volunteer. And if a volunteer has recently earned an award, they'll see a banner like this. And if they click into that, it takes them to their trophy case. Before I show you that, I want to show you one other place where this banner shows up. Once a volunteer clicks on this banner or clicks to close it out, it won't show up again until they receive a new award, but they can always see their awards in their trophy case. So again, I'll show you that in a moment, but I want to show you the other place where volunteers can see badges pop up, and that would be in the sign-in console. So when the sign-in console is open, and a volunteer signs in for their shift or goes to sign in for their shift, again, if they have recently earned an award and they haven't yet clicked to clear that out, they'll see that same banner pop up in here. So this is one other place where that shows up for volunteers. And you can also see next to the profile icon, that same badge is showing up here, and you can mouse over that to see what the most recent award is. Okay, so going back to the volunteer perspective, when a volunteer is logged into their account, if they click on this banner, or if they go down under report management and click view volunteer award history, they'll see that same trophy case, same kind of idea that we saw on the admin side. Obviously, they can't add or remove awards from here, but they can see where they're at. So what's the next award in each category? How much progress have they made toward that? Which awards have they already earned? When did they earn them? So all that information is presented in here as well. And then, of course, they can filter that. Like if you're doing monthly badges and they have a bunch of those, this is filtered automatically between the last 2 years. But they can also filter that if they only want to see a certain subset. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk about today with awards is running searches and reports on that information. So if we go back to the admin perspective, under the volunteer management heading, if you go into the advanced volunteer search, there is an option to search for volunteers based on awards. So you can select a particular award, and then you can also select a time frame. So let's say I want to find people who have this 50 lifetime hours badge. I can leave the dates here blank, and that will just show me any person with that badge. But maybe I'm only interested in seeing people that recently earned this award. So maybe I want to see people who earned it last year, right? In all of 2022, I can select that as my date range. And then this will only show me people who earned this badge within this time frame. So that can be a pretty helpful tool, especially if you give out awards, physical awards based on things like this. Then you can search for people who just earned this award as opposed to seeing everyone who has it. So you can run a search like that. And of course, then once you've run a search, you can do an export, you can send an email, you can do printouts or downloads or whatever else. There's one other form of reporting that you can do with awards, and that is specifically in the report management tool. So under volunteer management, if you go into report management, you can set a date range here. So same kind of idea. If I want to push a date range and see, all the awards earned between, January 1st of 2022 and today, I can set that as my date range. I can pick if I prefer Word documents or spreadsheets. And then if we scroll down, there is a report called Award Recipient Report. And this lets you pick which awards you want to report on. You could say include everything, or maybe you only want to see a particular award. You could select that through here, or of course you can choose more than one. Let's say include all awards though here. And if I go ahead and run this report, it's going to give me a Word document because that's what I selected. And you can see in this document, it basically just lays out, okay, when was the report ran? What date range does it cover? And then it has all of the award names and who received it and when did they receive it. So we can see all of those kind of dates reported, and then also totals for each of the awards, how many individuals received that particular award. And we can go through that in this case for every single award because that's what I selected to run this for. All right. Well, that is kind of the topic of awards management and how to create those, how to run searches by that, and then essentially, what volunteers see when they're engaging that information as well. So I know our team has been answering questions throughout the call, but we'll continue taking questions, and I'll also address those to the group if they're relevant. So feel free to keep writing those in. All right. Well, it looks like our team answered all the questions. They were a little bit more specific, so no big group questions today. Of course, if you have any other questions on this topic, feel free to use our customer support tool. Click on the Need Help button when you're logged in. You can type in topics through here, like if you want to learn more about awards, there's articles about how to create those and all that sort of stuff. And then also you can click on Contact Us to submit a question to our customer support team, who is excellent. So once again, I just want to thank you for your time. If you do have further questions on this topic, feel free to let us know. It was a pleasure to engage with you all today. I know I've worked with a lot of you directly, so thanks so much for joining. If you have further questions, let us know. Other than that, thanks again for your time and have a wonderful rest of your week.